You're listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast.
Hello and welcome back to The Whole Truth podcast. I'm Paul Armstrong. There's a particularly sought after species on the stock market these days. It's a copper stock that hasn't already run. There's a few criteria that make some more desirable than others. First of all, it needs to have a project in a tier 1 location with known mineralisation, preferably a resource, and it must be able to demonstrate there's plenty of upside through exploration so that the stock can make its own steam. In addition to that, a little bit of gold along the way also helps matters, and of course, management with a proven track record is also a must. You put all this together and you get a copper stock that's really sought after. As I said, there's not many of them, but I think we've found one on this episode of the Whole Truth podcast. Cygnus Metals meets all that criteria and then some. The company's drilling at its project in Canada. Cygnus has known mineralisation and it has a well-established resource at a very high grade. It's also made a gold discovery on its tenements, and David Southam, the executive chairman, has a great track record making money for shareholders in previous public companies. I spoke to David Southam about where he's going to with the stock, why he believes there's plenty of upside in it through exploration, and a little bit of icing on the cake, why this company might actually be caught up in the M&A wave that's washing through the share market in gold and copper stocks at the moment. David, welcome to the Whole Truth podcast. We haven't had a chat for some time. Since we were last on this show with you, the copper price has had a bit of a run, but most importantly, the sentiment towards copper and copper stocks has really changed. It's becoming, as I said in the intro, the art of the game now is to find a copper stock that hasn't had a run, but also meets some other key criteria. Cygnus meets a lot of that criteria. What are you up to now since we last spoke?
Well, since we last spoke, we completed the acquisition of Doré Copper in Quebec, and you're entirely correct, which is a change. Yeah, Paul, you're correct with the fact that very high grade resource, at 3.5% copper. It's a compliant resource with the Canadian code, nearly 11 million tonnes in a mining jurisdiction, right next to infrastructure. There is M&A going on in our space at the moment, and we're probably one of the few copper stocks that haven't run yet because we've only had the keys for 4 months. But what we'll talk about today is we've already made some high-grade discoveries, and when I say high-grade, I actually mean high-grade. So we've also discovered some gold with copper 3 kilometres away from our milling infrastructure. So there's another point. We have milling infrastructure in place. We have it's connected to cheap Canadian power, so it's hydro. And the team that are behind Cygnus were also the same team that helped develop what is today Firefly, which is also a pretty magnificent and very rare high-grade copper resource.
So let's look at that because that's important. We said things have changed a lot, David. So if we go back, you've only had the keys for 4 months, but you were working on this project for some time now. The group that you refer to is obviously Steve Parsons, Mike Naylor and co, the team behind, as you rightly say, Firefly, and Andy and Silver. They've had a very good track record in finding projects in North America, particularly that have got known mineralisation, some historic mining record, and then putting them into ASX listed companies and creating a lot of money, a lot of wealth for shareholders in the process.
Yes.
Certainly Firefly and Andy have been huge success stories. Now Cygnus now looking to emulate that process here with the project. But since you came across it, you knew there was copper there, but really it was a case of saying we're going to start again, isn't it?
Yeah, we knew there's a high-grade copper resource there. If you have a look at our area, there's within a 20-kilometre window, there's 1 million tonnes of copper that has been mined with some, and very high grade. There's also 3 million ounces of gold, but it was all owned separately, and the companies never spoke to each other. They never shared data. We've now taken control of that area. We have all the data. And already through analysing some of their historical logs, we've been able to make a discovery called Goldeneye, where we've intersected up to 60 gram per tonne gold, which guess what is very shallow from mineralising from about 100 metres. It's accessible by a ramp, which is already in place. It's never been mined. And we'll have some more news flow on that coming very shortly. So within 4 months, we've made a gold discovery. We've also hit some high-grade copper at a target called Colleen, And the main resource that underpins a study that was completed by the previous owners, we've proven 250 metres away from that resource, we hit 4.6% copper over 7 metres.
So the gold discovery obviously has they're spectacular assays,
Yes.
albeit limited at the moment, but you didn't note at the time of that result that there'll be more assays imminent. So you said sort of, late May. So they must be just about on your doorstep. So obviously you'd be hoping to put a resource around that discovery in the near future?
Yes. So if people went and had a look at the study, which is available publicly, it would show that we have already, within that study, 250,000 ounces of gold that was priced at $1,800 US. So put in today's gold price, and you already have a significant uplift in the economics. We feel that we'll be able to add substantially to that resource with GoldenEye. We have a few more holes, which you are absolutely 100% correct, will come out very shortly. So they'll be drafted and on the ASX as soon as we possibly can get them on there.
So you've got the gold discovery, but you're also obviously growing the copper. I mean, people would say, well, what is going to drive this share price? You've got a market cap of only $60-odd million at the moment. So,
yes,
given what you've got in copper, yes, it is a Canadian resource, but you've proven it's there. You've got the upside there. It's still pretty cheap. I see there's some brokers' notes out there with the likes of 30-cent price targets around. So they're obviously sensing the upside here. What do you say is going to drive that price and close the gap between the price of 7-odd cents today and these target prices of 30 cents and the like?
I think we have only had this asset for 4 months, and I'm on a fairly strong campaign at the moment to educate the market. I have to say that our register is very solid institutionally. We have some of the world's largest funds, even though we're a small cap company, that are invested in us, and they've been very sticky. So the stock really trades around on very thin volumes at the moment. So I will be talking to a number of investors, both globally and here within Australia. There will be an education process, but it'll also, let's prove what we promise. And we promised that we would drill straight away and that we would come up with results, and we've proven that. So for us, there will be more assays that come out, and then look for an upgrade to the resource, and potentially we'd like to be able to grow that resource. Because remember, we have in this district the only mining infrastructure for 250 kilometres. There's no other base metal mill. There is a lot of copper.
So you're talking about a hub scenario here, aren't you? In the sense that if you can bring in Colleen, and then the GoldenEye gold discovery as well, you end up with a copper resource, a gold resource, all feeding into close trucking distance to a centralised plant.
Well, the gold is 3 kilometres away. A hub and spoke model. We will, even with those additional ounces and potential tonnes of copper, we will have space within the mill. So if you put that into an Australian context, think of Ramelius Resources, that Mount Magnet, many thought had exhausted gold 10 years ago. Well, it's got millions of ounces there and has successfully put in a hub and spoke model, acquiring resources nearby and processing them through. The theory is no different for us. There is a lot of moribund Canadian-based companies that have copper and gold within our region, and we have an ASX listing. Don't underestimate the value of that to TSX-listed companies. And that's not talking down the TSX. It's just that the ASX has far more volume than what the TSX does.
So let's go through the news flow. Mm-hmm. What happens from here?
So what happens from here? Very shortly, we will have assays out for GoldenEye.
For the gold?
For the gold. And it also comes with a copper, because we are predominantly 80% copper, 20% gold.
Now you did note, I think if I recall correctly, there was visible gold.
Correct.
In the GoldenEye sample. So therefore, that assay is going to show what actually technically is in there. But you did dangle the carrot a little bit there.
You only dangle the carrot if you know the carrot's mineralised, and it is. So the assay will show that. Like the previous, one of the previous assays also have visible gold, and so I think we reported up to 60 grams per tonne in that assay. So we're pretty confident that those assays will be strong. At the same time,
Now on that, will you need to do some more drilling around there, or can you use historic drilling to get a resource?
there's a significant amount of historic drilling. So this is about going through that data. So there's 140,000 images. We started at GoldenEye, and this is a 6-month program, and lo and behold, we've got all these intersections. We've drilled. We've made intersections. We're going to have a resource. This is how rich this area is. I don't think people really truly understand. And the town of Shabugamu is a modern version of Kalgoorlie. It has a mining training school. It has miners that are based there. It's a high-vis town with modern infrastructure, which we are 10 minutes away from. So our location is extraordinary. So following that, we've moved the drill rig to Corner Bay, which is the main copper resource, and we are converting that more into indicated resource. And what that will allow us to do is update the study to show, and I think Barry Fitzgerald wrote an article on this, that if you were to put any sort of modern consensus pricing and add a bit of CapEx and a bit of OpEx to the study, it produces 1.3 billion of free cash before tax for only 180 million outlay. That is one of the most lowest capital intensive copper projects on the ASX or TSX.
Right. So you look for that. You've used historical drilling as well to get a resource. And the copper, where do we go there?
So the copper will be about upgrades and potentially adding more copper tons to the resource. So that work is going on in the background now. And what probably a few people don't understand, we also have appointed Ausenco, who are working on updating the study so we can take it to a greater confidence level. The previous study is somewhere between a scoping study in Australia and a PFS, and we want to advance that. We've got an offtake agreement in place.
I mean, that study found some pretty good financial returns,
yes,
but it was based on much lower prices.
Significantly lower prices. The examples being gold was at 1,800 US. It's nearly double that today. The Canadian dollar was strong against the US at that point in time. It's now weak. The treatment and refining charges for copper were priced at 8 times what today's charges are. That has a significant
They've
impact.
plunged, haven't they? They're almost zero.
You cannot find high quality copper concentrate, and what the work that the previous company did showed that it produces a 28 to 30% copper concentrate. And just bear in mind, there are not many elements that go into our copper equivalent. We are purely copper and gold. I haven't even talked about the 1 million ounces of silver that we believe is sitting within the ore body as well. And that's another upside. The recoveries have improved. That's another upside. So the study is for us, it was the protection that we needed, that if we weren't successful with the drilling, what sort of project would we have? And we could see that underscored a 10-year, 24,000 tonne of copper per annum project. But I think we've already proved we're going to be adding to that all within 4 months.
So what's the scope for M&A here? I mean, is there a consolidation play to be had in the area?
Shabugamu has been talked about as one of those areas to be consolidated. There are deposits of millions of ounces of gold held within various companies, and our mill can process a lot of that gold. There is copper, which is sitting within 100 kilometres of us, sitting in junior companies that don't have a pathway to production, and they don't have the liquidity of the ASX. So I suppose that was the third element of our strategy of getting into this copper asset. One was we thought we could grow the resource. 2, we thought there are discoveries to be made here, and we've already proven that. And then 3, we felt that there was a regional consolidation play.
So do you see yourself predator or prey?
I see myself maximising shareholder value.
Either way, you're at whichever way leads to making money.
Well, shareholders should be aware that management, we are all shareholders in the company. We've all personally put cash into the company. When we were previously had lithium in James Bay, we took pay cuts to put money into the company. So we are very motivated with shareholders for this to go well. And we couldn't have asked for a better start. And within 4 months of having a couple of drill rigs running, you've proven that there's more copper outside the resource. You've hit new copper, which is only 80 metres deep. You've then hit high-grade gold, which is shallow. We're talking from 100 metres to 300 metres deep with infrastructure right next to a mill. We couldn't have asked for a better start. So we've proven up the theory, and now it's time for us to talk about that more publicly. And in the backdrop, as you alluded to, I think in your opening, there's a lot of M&A activity going on in the copper space. Within the last week and a half, we've seen MAC have an offer from Harmony. We've seen New World Resources have an offer from Central Asia, and Xanadu being taken out. There are not many ways to play copper across the globe, and especially high grade. And I do emphasise this. This is not a 0.4% copper deposit. This is 3.5%.
It'd have to be one of the highest copper grades on the ASX.
It is.
Yeah. So Bill Beamont was making the point in a column the other day that about the shortage of copper stocks too. There's very few to choose from.
Yep.
And particularly if you're looking for some that are going to make their own steam, as I said in the intro, it's about trying to find some that are actually doing something on the ground, generating drilling results and news flow, growing the resource to actually make money for people rather than just trying to ride a macro wave of copper. I mean, the outlook for copper is obviously good. That's the consensus, but you want to be making your own action at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. And as part of it, we've taken on people who are project builders. So the managing director for Cygnus in country was the CEO for Inmet in Panama for the Cobra Panama project. So that's one of the world's largest copper projects. He permitted it and started construction of it. That expertise is sitting within Cygnus. The COO built the New Afton gold mine. So we've got project builders in our team now. So that really closes the loop. We're very much Quebec based with an office, a very low-cost office in Perth with a project. And let me tell you, being in Canada, they've always been patriotic, but it has gone to a new level.
Now, you obviously think the stock is underappreciated on the market, of
Yes.
course, and that view is shared by some of the analysts, as I said, have put some big price targets on it. So you're about to go on a dog and pony show, as they say. You've got to the point now where you feel like you can get on the front foot and start to tell the story.
Yes.
So you're heading to the East Coast?
Yeah, East Coast. We're also heading into North America, where we do have some strong institutional support. Our largest shareholder is a New York-based institutional investor. So we'll be seeing them, and they also help introduce us to other funds that may not be aware of the story. So we do have really strong support, and I'm really looking forward to this next 6 months because we were a little bit quiet to start with. We didn't want to promise too much, but we're now starting to deliver those goods. But look, I'm not the first CEO who's going to say that their stock is undervalued, but I'm telling the truth.
Yeah. There's also a pretty strong case for saying that, given you've only really been at it for 4 or 5 months, that is to be expected. The market's still trying to get its head around it.
Yep.
And the sentiment is now turning your way in terms of copper. Obviously, you got the two metals that are hot, copper and gold. So there's plenty to help the story along the way. But nothing like getting out, wearing off the shoe leather, and actually telling people what you got, and more importantly, where you think it's going to.
Yeah, and the group, we have a track record of doing deals, finding assets that are sitting below the radar. But this was an asset that we had our eye on for a couple of years. And it was just finding that right opportunity to be able to do something. But getting on the road and being able to share that. But I do think track record is important. And a lot of our shareholders, when we announced the deal that came in because of that track record and have stuck. And so now it's about attracting new investors.
Right. Well, David, thanks for your time. We know you're going to head off the road very shortly, so safe travels, all the best. We look forward to seeing how the market reacts to you going out and spreading the good word.
Thanks, Paul.
You've been listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast, produced by Resource Media, hosted by Paul Armstrong for Reed Corporate. Please note that Reed Corporate does not provide investment advice, and investors should seek personalised advice before making any investment decisions.